This budget is the product of a government that is out of touch, out of ideas and increasingly running out of road. It's bizarre that any government in the current climate would introduce a budget that delivers precisely nothing for renters. Didn't even pretend to provide renters a break. It's also mind-boggling that in a week when there were 483 people at one stage lying on hospital trolleys, the budget failed to provide for a single new acute hospital bed or community bed beyond what was already committed. Only 24 million additional spending for mental health at a time when we're facing a mental health crisis. On childcare, government's big idea is to cap fees. Seriously, the flagship proposal is to cap the highest childcare costs in Europe, not to reduce them. Families and workers are being pushed to the brink. Childcare costs represent a second mortgage. There's going to be no cost reduction for most parents, nothing for renters. And energy and fuel costs are going through the roof. Government's response, you couldn't make it up. It's to increase those costs further by hiking the carbon tax. So the reality is that most workers and families will actually be worse off as a result of this budget. It's some achievement. And as well as the increases in heating costs, and remember that energy companies have increased their costs 30 times this year, goods will also be increased as fuel costs will be added to the prices. And this will be a particular blow for our family farmers. They are going to see the cost of almost all inputs increase as a result of this budget. Farm contractors who aren't exempt from the carbon tax, despite promises from government parties that they would be, will have no choice but to pass on the increases to hard-pressed farmers. In fact, Budget 2022 offers virtually nothing for our family farmers. No support for suckler beef farmers, no additional funding for the sheep farmers, no emergency wool package, no additional funding for farmers in areas of natural constraint, pittance, I have to say, for organics and forestry schemes, nothing for farm assist. Of course, as always, there's an extra €7 million for beef and dairy processors, just nothing at all for the people actually producing the food. This government, I have to say, is completely tone deaf when it comes to the needs of our ordinary family farming community. Those farmers will be expected to continue to produce the highest quality of food almost anywhere in the world, to the highest environmental standards of anywhere in the world, but they will face increased costs and receive reduced prices in real terms. It's a horrendous legacy. Despite a lazy narrative, our family farmers aren't the enemy of the Green agenda. But the Green Party are the enemy of our family farmers, and in this budget, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael have picked a side, and it's not on the side of our farming communities. Sinn Féin's Budget 2022 proposals would have resulted in an increased spend of almost 220 million within the Department of Agriculture, a 12% increase. The government provided a measly 1%. Crucially, Sinn Féin's proposals would have benefited our family farmers that need support most. They would have benefited the rural communities that depend on those farmers, and they would have benefited the environment. The government's proposals do none of those things. Our commitments to a suckler farmer of up to €300 per cow, to a €20 per ewe sheep welfare scheme, a €5 million support package for wool producers, €25 million increase for areas of natural constraint, and increased disregards for farm assist would all help smaller and poorer farmers in a meaningful way. And rather than lecture farmers in rural communities about climate action and then penalise them through carbon taxes and counterproductive measures, Sinn Féin proposed measures that would actually help farmers to play a positive role in reducing emissions and making necessary changes. And this would involve substantial investment beyond what government have provided in organics and facilitating farmers in agri-environmental programmes. Ireland, instead, through the government, have capitulated to an agenda that will see this country importing peat from Latvia and wood from Scotland, and Europe importing beef from Brazil and milk from New Zealand. Farmers will lose out, the rural communities that depend on them will lose out, and the environment will suffer. It's an agenda based on tokenism and hypocrisy, and it's indefensible. Minister McConalogue isn't even here to defend it. He's participating, I'm told, in a consultation process that should have taken place a year ago, and which he's undoubtedly going to use to prevent redistributive measures in the next CAP. But I have to say, his junior ministers tried valiantly to put a positive spin on things. But in reality, you both know, because we all know, that this budget will actually leave family farmers worse off. Shame on any TD that supports this budget.